Hello again, time for a new video. Today, we shall discuss ideals. Now, it is commonly believed that having ideals is a good thing, and to some extent, that is true. There is an issue, however, and that's the ability of an ideal to survive the real world. See, reality is not like the mind. As much as we may want it to be, what we think and what is do not align, especially if you're committed to a certain ideology. For example, there are plenty of people who would love the idea of forgiveness for criminals, amnesty, welcoming them back in the fold, getting them a good job, making sure they have a good life. One problem: most criminals don't want to reform. Sure, some do, especially those who do it because of poverty. But many more, especially those who commit heinous acts, do not want to reform. In fact, their very existence poses an existential threat to others in the vicinity of them. And so you cannot just say, well, we should give them amnesty. No, you're only going to make more people suffer. Since how you think things will go is not how they will actually go. You got to adjust based on reality. And often reality isn't kind to blind idealism. You have to factor in reality when you make your plans. As a result, ideals are some of the quickest things to collapse in face of practical situations. For example, let's say you want world peace, yay, doves, all the happiness in the world, no one trying to kill each other, all the joy that comes with that. Right? World peace. I know many people love the idea of it, and I don't blame them. It's a nice idea. But how practical is it? Not really. Such an idea does not last. Not in the face of those who seek to take advantage of peace to secure their own territorial gains and ambitions. For an obvious example, for many Americans, look at Putin. Do you think that we can just negotiate such a way to have Putin stop being aggressive? No, we can't. The only way to have world peace with Putin on this earth is for him to rule the world. And I don't think that's a peace anyone wants to accept. Now one might ask, well then what are our options? Pragmatism. Ruthless pragmatism is often the way to go. If there's a threat, eliminate it. No hesitation, no, oh, but it's sort of morally dubious. No, just eliminate it. If it is a threat, crush it, leave it in dust, leave it buried 6 feet under, and don't have to deal with it anymore. If an enemy country looks like it's gonna pose a threat, overthrow their government, establish a new one, secure territory to ensure that they don't come back as a threat. Furthermore, you should ensure that all politics is going in a slightly manipulated way. Because the people are stupid. I know there's this lovely ideal that a lot of people, especially in the West, have, where they're like, the people can decide for themselves how they're ruled. No, they can't. Much like a child can't decide a lot of things for themselves, neither can people. Because when people get into a group, they become some of the dumbest beings on this planet. You do not have to count how many times the people have done something so counterproductive that it ends up resulting in a way worse situation than if they just followed orders. For example, the People's Crusade. Have you heard of the People's Crusade? Well, it's a fairly simple affair that happened. Now some say it helped the First Crusade due to the sheer failure of it, because it made the current government ruling Jerusalem not believe that the Crusaders were a real threat, but it led to the deaths of tens of thousands of peasants, the sacking of city after city after city in Europe, and the destruction of much more in terms of property. All for what? What did they get out of it? Their own deaths as soon as they actually arrive in the Holy Land? Who am I kidding? It wasn't even in the Holy Land. They made it to Anatolia before they got slaughtered. That was it. People are dumb, especially in groups, and especially when it comes to politics. Because most of them do not know practical cause and effect. That's one of the reasons I do not like when people say free healthcare. Nothing is free in this world. Should not take a genius to figure that out because some energy and supplies must be expended to get a result. But people say free healthcare and they think, well, why are you saying we shouldn't do this? It's free. Someone's going to have to pay for it. It's not free. But people think it is because that's all they hear. Free, free, free. They don't think for 2 seconds that that is impossible. Because why would they? If everyone else is talking about this free healthcare, then surely it's got to be real and true. There's a sort of madness the mob has, where if they hear it enough times, they assume it to be correct 100% of the time. At the same time, there's an opposite effect that can come of this, of essentially contrarianism, where whatever the mob says to be true 100% of the time is rejected by the person holding such contrarian views and is assumed to be completely wrong. Sometimes the mob is true, sometimes they aren't, but the fact is, people in their behaviors can often result in some of the dumbest conclusions humanity has ever seen. You would think that the people who witnessed job after job after job become unaffordable for businesses and so moved out or were replaced by robots and artificial intelligence, you would think that those people would understand that increasing the minimum wage isn't a net gain. But no, because all they hear is, wait, I could get more money? Yes, totally. Yeah, that's why they're going over to other companies now, or other countries. I'll say it bluntly. When you're dealing with people, you have to accept that plenty of them are just freaking stupid. By age, this doesn't really change. It's generally increased as they get younger because they don't have the experience to say, okay, maybe we shouldn't go too far in one area, not the other. As a matter of fact, the youth have a tendency towards idealism that rivals on just sheer unadulterated vapidity. Like, it is legitimately insane how dumb they can be. But it's not like the old are much better in some instances. But they usually have the experience at least to sort of mitigate that. However, no matter what, this cannot be overstated. The reality in which we live, and what you imagine in your mind, they will never be the same. For example, I, this may shock you, was actually fairly liberal in the past. I straight up supported a universal wealth tax. Yeah, I did. I don't anymore, but I did. I had ideals. Liberty, equality, justice, for everyone. How those ideals shake up? Well, I watched 3 consecutive presidencies where everyone was clowning on a populist just because they hated his guts. Simultaneously, said populist did a number of things that were stupid. His predecessor did some as well, and so did his successor. And then he's now back in charge and causing an uproar, and all I can do is watch as everyone around me becomes either more radical or more stupid day by day. When people are saying, maybe let's hear the communist out in New York City, you know things have gone off the rails. We've been down this road before. It didn't work. And yet, every single ideal I've had, I have watched crumble before the weight of human stupidity. I want liberty for all? Okay. Well, good luck doing that when traditionalists want you beheaded for doing it, and progressives don't like it because natural rights interferes with their artificially created human rights, which happen to involve hurting more humans than is physically necessary to get anything done. What about equality? Oh, that one just fell apart as soon as I looked into it because it cannot freaking exist. And then justice. Who defines justice? Is a lady who cuts off a child's head and then says, Allah Akbar. Is that justice? No. Not to me. Someone needs to define what justice is. You can't have a bunch of different groups saying, this is justice, this is justice, this is justice, and have them all have their own individual interpretations for justice to be universal. You gotta say, nope, this is justice. This is our way of doing it. It's just for everyone. There's no getting out of this. We shall apply it to everyone, and if you don't like it, suck it. We don't care. You almost have to do that, because otherwise, people are going to go back and forth on what is right, and by the end, those who justify actions through justice, like killing people, are going to win. Because if you're not willing to fight, but they are, someone's going to die, and it ain't going to be them. You just have to, essentially. You have to be an imperialist in that regard. There can be only one definition of justice. Because if everyone has their own definition, then that's not just at all. Justice is blind. It does not care for culture. It does not care for personal feelings. So to have a bunch of people say, well, my local justice is totally the same as yours and totally of equal value, is to essentially lie to yourself. It is a freaking pointless exercise in futility. Legitimate. It cannot work. If every person can decide their own definition of justice, then me wanting every murderer, rapist, and slaver put in the ground, buried deep, and made sure that they can never get out with lead coffins is just. And so is a person who lets people get raped, murdered, butchered, enslaved, and free to do whatever ill they want. That is at the same level. Because justice is personal or cultural. It is not. It can never be. Because such an idea is utterly insane. I cannot be as equal as a slaver in terms of morality, unless I am a slaver myself or have committed an equally heinous crime. Have I? No, not that I'm aware of, unless owning a dog is somehow equal to slavery. But, hey, that's Peter's problem. And Peter can go burn. But, regardless, under any and all circumstances, we have seen ideals crumble. Ideals are lovely in the most general of senses. It's nice to have them, because it feels good, you know? Something you hold deeply, like a principle you are convicted to under any and all circumstances. But it cannot survive reality. We've seen time and time again, idealists are the first to die. They're the first to crumble. They're the first to end up in a ditch because someone who is more ruthless and pragmatic than them is willing to act. The Social Democrats in Russia took over the government from the Tsar. We don't hear about them, do we? Not usually. We hear about the Soviets, the Bolsheviks, who rounded them up and killed them because they were pragmatists. They didn't care about whatever speech you want to give about liberty, equality, fraternity. What they cared about was seizing power. And they did exactly that. Reality doesn't have the time to waste on ideals. Not in this situation. Not in this world. Maybe, just maybe, in the future, with everything stable and a universal rule of law established, there could be. Maybe there could be ideals that live, heroes that exist, people that thrive without needing to have violence as a backup. Maybe. But we aren't in that world. Not yet, at least. Such a world is far off. Bare minimum, it would take a world war and the abolishment of all nuclear weapons to ensure that doesn't go, completely fallout. Regardless, there's one thing I have observed and to which I hold, regardless of how much I liked such a conclusion. Ideals are truly golden ideas, but they turn to ash and soot at the first contact with reality. They crumble in the face of the necessities of the world we live in. Murder, rape, torture. They're all things that everyone hates. Well, most people hate. And yet, they still exist. Because those few that don't mind them, or who are willing to put in the work to do them because they believe they get a short-term benefit out of it, they keep going. It doesn't stop unless you make them. So, you cannot have your ideals thrive in such a world where some people are willing to go around every moral imperative, every reasonable conclusion, just for a few more minutes of feeling good, of feeling powerful, like you're in control. We can't have ideals in such a situation. We can only have pragmatism. The ability to, if something comes up like that, crush it in the dirt before it poses a threat to anyone's health or well-being. That is all we can do. Morality exists. It will always exist. However, we cannot, and we should not, rely on morality for all judgments. Pragmatism is what keeps people alive. And people who are alive can be as moral as they want. It's the dead who don't have a choice. And so no matter what, life should be protected and morality should be left to the side.